So, as I uploaded yesterday, basically the more written version of what I've talked about in the past, even though it wasn't completely on screen. I mean, you have to go to the description to read the whole thing. And I kind of cleaned up the description as best I can because, with, sites like the YT and others, you don't want to take a chance of, getting in trouble. However, there was something that, got on my mind a little bit. And, one of the stories I talked about in there as an example as to, why, Tails is always chosen, Miles Prower, that is, always chosen, aged up or not, to basically be with certain, female Sonic characters. One of the stories I mentioned in there, and I also posted this at inkbunny.net and deviantart.com and furfiniate.com, where you could basically read the written version and all that, as well as here, as well as in the description of the initial video I posted yesterday. But one of the stories I talked about was the one that the Cyborg Fox made back in 2020, and he recently did a sequel that I reviewed here called, here in 2024. And the one he made in 2020 was called Southern Fox 11, and the sequel he made recently, as of a week ago, so less than a week ago, was called Southern Foxy Consequences. And they both dealt with Tails and Bunnie basically, of course, getting it on. In Southern Fox 11, as I've talked about before, Bunnie, basically she's married to Antoine, and just like she was in the Archie Sonic comics. And, the difference here in this story is Antoine is, basically portrayed as being very uppity and very highfalutin, if you will, to the point that he doesn't want to degrade himself to have to, give in to Bunnie's urges that she needs to be taken care of. So what does Bunnie do? She decides to go to Tails, who's aged up in the story, and after kind of coaxing him and flirting with him and all that, gets him to give in and help her out, in that department, not knowing, as we find out in the sequel, that, like I said, Cyborg Fox put out, less than a week ago, not knowing that the little romp, to help her out would result in her basically expecting, if you will. But what's interesting about the sequel is it also falls back on something else. Because as I mentioned in the review, the way, certain scenes in the original were described, it's like all Cyborg Fox had to do was add in parentheses that, that Bunnie and Tails were falling in love. But they just didn't know it. I mean, the fact that he would describe them gazing longingly into each other's eyes, staring lustfully into each other's eyes, and all that. Again, all these have to do is put in parentheses, as they were starting to fall in love, unbeknownst to them. That's all he had to do. But he didn't do that, but we can kind of see that. We can kind of see that was occurring. And the person that requested the sequel, obviously saw it too, and thus we ended up getting what we did, to where at the end of the story, the sequel, Bunnie is now with Tails and Antoine is left alone. And even though some people are a little like, some of the characters, initially are not happy, once they find out the reason, they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Good for you, Bunnie. Leave that guy if he doesn't want to help you. And the same goes for Sally, who tries to, act like she's disappointed, but Bunnie, being her BFF, could see right through that disappointment and be like, hey, you want a piece of him? Just let me know. I'm cool with that. And that obviously cliffhangs for another sequel to be made down the line. But the reason I bring this up, and I think I've talked about it before, I'm not really sure, but there are other artists and fanfic writers out there, that, and I'll add myself to that equation, or add myself to that group as well, that kind of, upload fan art and fan stories where Tails and Bunnie are paired up. One person in particular over at inkbunny.net, and I think he's on DeviantArt as well, and for Finiate, he has a couple of pictures to where Bunnie and Tails are together. There's one image that takes place obviously in Knothole, and it kind of follows, the trend, or follows the little subplot or character subplot that, Bunnie wants to be a hairdresser, have her own hairstyling business and all that. Well, basically, long story short, the story that accompanies the picture, and here's the thing, I cannot post that picture here, because if I do, I'm a dead man. But anyway, the story that accompanies the picture is that Bunnie and Tails went on a recon, to Robotropolis to see what was going on with Eggman, and as soon as they got back, it seemed that Bunnie got a little bit more, I guess you could say, affectionate with Tails than he could expect. And there were various times where she would tease him. She would put her, I guess you could say, upper region on his head, rest her upper region, her rack, as it's described, on his head, rested there. She would tap him a little bit, on the back or the buttocks, if you will. And so on. She would basically tease the heck out of him to the point that he's like, I can't focus on my work here. I can't focus on my inventing, so I got to go talk to her. And it's like she knew he was going to do this, because she compliments, about time you showed up. And Tails basically obviously knows what's about to happen, because she tells him, take a seat. And what she does then, according to the description of the story that accompanies the picture, is she, basically turns the open sign to close. It's like one of those hanging open signs that you turn over to close. She does that, shuts the door, shuts the curtains, and basically, let's just say, Tails explains to her what's going on, and it's kind of described as, them getting a little attracted, getting more attracted to each other, and let's just say the picture, which I cannot link or show here, pretty much indicates that, that Bunnie's flirtatious teasing is paid off, and she now has pretty much a boyfriend in Tails. And that's not the only one. There's another picture as well that has them, getting, busy, if you will, in the hay, which is, I guess, one of the hay piles, next to the sliding tree, which is the entrance into Knothole. And the little subtitle to it is "Rolling the Hay, Stork on the Way." And then there's another one where he's kind of helping her out, with urge, if you will, that she needs to be taken care of. And she compliments that, hey, whenever you want to clean out, whenever you want to help me with my robotic parts and all that, come by anytime. You can come find me anytime, or I'll come to you at any time, or whatever it was. And I bring this all up because apparently this fan, and others out there like to pair Bunnie and Tails together. Now, I know people might say that can't be, because, in several chronological canons and continuities, Tails is 8 to 10 or 12 to 14. And that is indeed fact. That is indeed fact, in some cases. However, here's the issue. They're basing this shipping, if you will, off what they see in real life. Because you see, what they see in real life, and I'm someone, and I've mentioned this before, who went to high school when this happened. Basically, they're basing this kind of relationship on the fact that, yeah, she might be a few years older than him, but that doesn't mean she can't be with him. I was in Oskaloosa High School, and I was in a freshman class with a couple of girls and everything, and some of these girls ended up dating guys that were 4 years older than them. In fact, one of them married this guy as well and is with him to this day. And she was 4 years younger, 3.5 to 4 years younger. And I think that's why people are basing a ship like this, I think that's why people are basing a ship like this, of Bunnie and Tails. I think that's what they're basing it off of. That's what I was trying to say. I think that's what they're basing it off of. They're basing a romance like this, off the fact that, she might be 3 years, 4 years older than him, but that doesn't mean she can't be with him, And again, I know people might argue that, but to me, that's why some people ship Tails with certain characters that might be older, chronologically older, like Bunnie, like Sally. Yes, they do ship Tails and Sally. Like Rouge, if you will. Or like Blaze. Yeah, they do ship Tails and Blaze. They do that because it's not just due to the fact that, it's fantasy, and if we want to in our fan arts and fanfics, we can age them up and everything. It's not just that. It's the fact that they look at it from a real life point of view. And that real life point of view is that there are, young people that may be years, apart, in age that date each other. There is. I mean, heck, you look at, what goes on in the world of, in the world of Hollywood with celebrities and all that, and you wonder to yourself, why is an older guy or older girl like this dating a younger guy or younger girl like that? It just doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense, but yet there it is. So I think that's what they're doing. But the way they're doing it is they're basing it off more of what they've seen growing up. Like, they've seen, like me, potentially some friends that might be years apart, getting together. And I think that's why you see this, the Bunnie and Tails pairing happening a lot. Probably more so than anything. I mean, not as much as Tails and Nicole, because Tails and Nicole, as I've talked about before, that's a ship that can be done at any time, because Nicole, being an AI, can, shape herself to any age she wants to basically match up with, with Tails. Match up with Tails and all that, and go from there. And go from there. But again, outside of, the Tails Nicole deal, and everything, you have Tails and Bunnie. And the other reason I think as well is there's, and I went back and talked about this, I think, in my review, of Southern Foxy Consequences. I said that there was a backup story in one of the earlier issues where the comic was slowly transitioning, the Archie Sonic comic was slowly transitioning from a very humorous comic to a more serious comic, more of a Satam-inspired comic. And one of the backup issues had Bunnie basically collecting all these emeralds, all these little green chaos emeralds, before they decided to go the 7 emerald route. She's collecting all these different emeralds for her outfit, for her dress, that she's going to wear to a charity dance or to a charity ball. And to me, what really, kind of set off people in thinking, are they teasing a Bunnie Tails ship? Is you have Sally and Bunnie all dressed up and ready, and here you have Sonic and Tails, finishing up getting themselves ready in their, in their tuxedos or their suits. And the first impression that goes through your mind is, wait a minute, is Tails taking Bunnie and Sonic's taking Sally? Sally? Or the other way around? The first thing that goes through your mind is like, wait a minute, we know Sonic's taking Sally. Does that mean Tails is taking Bunnie? He's like, what? And again, I think it goes back to what I said about the Tails Nicole deal. People see, Nicole as one of Sally's best friends, like a sister, little sister. So it only makes sense to them that, Sally's little sister would end up with Sonic's little bro, that being Tails. To kind of make it even Steven. But this was before all of that happened, and I think they looked at it, and still some look at it this way, like, well, BFFs and Sally and Bunnie, BFFs and Sonic and Tails, it only makes sense. Despite the fact that there is an age difference by a few years, people will look beyond that because they base, the shipping and all that on real life. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. I mean, true, not everybody's going to agree with that. I mean, heck, I had people and still have people commenting on what I, wrote up or typed up on, WordPad and everything, and what you saw here on YouTube, in a short minute and 15-second video. I had people commenting on there that, some didn't like it. Some were okay with it, some didn't. Or some weren't, I should say. And that's understandable, but I think what they fail to understand is, you could disagree with it, but maybe you need to look at it from a real life perspective of, oh, that's why they're doing it. That's why they're doing it. Because again, as some people pointed out, canon-wise, in certain aspects of Sonic, Tails is viewed as 8, and that could be like the classic Sonic era. But when we view him now in like the Sonic Frontiers, Sonic Prime era, you're looking at someone that might be about the age of 13, 14, and when you compare him to Bunnie, who's like 17, 18, to them, that's like, well, she might be 4 years older than him, but heck, we've seen people in real life, some close friends end up together, and they're like 4 or 3 years apart, so there shouldn't be any issue. And I think that's why they go this route. I think they do. Whether we like to admit that or not, I think that's why they go this route. So yeah, that's why I think we see a lot of Tails and Bunnie stories, and sometimes even, Tails and Sally, because they're basing it off real life situations, age-wise, that is seen in, seen out there in the world, or they've seen, personally themselves. But let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think of it? I mean, I know some of you might not agree with it, and that's fine. Some of you might feel it's not right and everything, that's fine. But what do you think of it overall of, people going this route of a Tails-Bunnie relationship or whatever, in their own continuities and fan-ins and whatever, because they base it off, just an age difference of 3 to 4 years. Let me know down below in the comments as well in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, and until next time, guys, I am out. Normally, I'd make this a Patreon exclusive for the $3 tiers, and it still might just be on the Patreon exclusives, but it'll be available for everybody as well. But I have to come out and say this, and one of the Patreons that I did, or at least I attempted to do, I talked about how, in fan fiction, we as fans, when we like to write, our own take on characters, our own stories and stuff, that we like to put the characters into scenarios that, are a little different than what they normally are in. Like, we take them and we put them in this scenario, we put them in that scenario, and it's really, really amazing to see all the different kind of, scenarios a character gets into. But one of the scenarios I've noticed the most of is with Tails, Miles Prower. And how a lot of the stories, mostly a lot of the, what we would consider NFSW stories, very adult, erotic stories, if you will, seem to have Tails pinned as a ladies' man. Yeah. And I think, like I said, I may have done something like this for the Patreons only, so I'll have to go back and check. But yeah, basically a lot of the stories out there have Tails pinned as a ladies' man. A lot of the adult, erotic, NFSW stories, they have him pinned as a ladies' man. And not just, in fictional stories, that you see at different, websites like DeviantArt and Furfinient and various other places, but in webcomics as well. One webcomic site, I should say, of course, is PAL Comics. There are some there. Or at least I think there's one there, but it focuses on Tails creating some kind of a holographic, realistic machine that brings all the girls that he has a thing for to life. and during it, it results in all these holographic versions of the girls that he likes. Believe it or not, combining together into one entity for a time to really give him what he wants. But it's so weird, like I said, just to notice this. I mean, even on regular fanfiction.net, you see this, but you have to have an account, and you also have to be under the M rating. And your account settings have to be set to mature ratings, if you will, accessible to mature ratings. But I see this, and I'm like, damn, what's the deal here? What is going on? I mean, I did a video not that long ago where I asked about, I basically asked, where did the whole Tails and Rouge pairing come up with? Where did this whole shipping of Tails and Rouge come from? And I can only allude to what many people have pointed out as, them being paired up as a team, helping each other and all that in the IDW comics. But even with that, it made me wonder exactly where did this come from, because I would notice, pictures on various Sonic sites. I would notice pictures on DeviantArt. I would, Fur Affinia, places like that. And I'm wondering, where did they come from? How is this possible? What's going on, It just really blows the mind when you really think about it. Because it seems to me that a lot of fans are pinning, as I mentioned at the beginning, Tails as a ladies' man in every interpretation they can get at. They are pinning him as a ladies' man in every interpretation that you can think of. And there are some stories. I'll tell you this right now. You got to go to fanfiction.net if you want to look at them. Go to the mature rating. Go to the cartoons category. Well, not the cartoons, but the games category of the site. Go scroll down to Sonic the Hedgehog, and believe me, you will find some stories on there that will blow your mind. That'll make you tilt your head and go like, really? Okay, that was interesting. Because there are stories in there where Tails is treated like a ladies' man, but all because he has, let's just say, how do I put this in a way? He has a big stick, if you get what I'm saying. He has a big, bamboo stick. Let's put it that way. He has a big bamboo stick, and a lot of these ladies in these stories love the idea that he has this big bamboo stick, all with him all the time. And it just makes you go completely out of your mind, thinking, how could they come up with all these kind of scenarios, that he gets into with these characters? And get this. It's not just any characters that you would normally think he'd be with. Oh, no. It's not just any characters that you wouldn't think he'd normally be with. Oh, no. Get this. He would be with characters, and this is the lineup. I am not joking here. And again, I mentioned this, I think, in a Patreon exclusive video. But I am not joking here. The characters that he would end up with, the ladies he would end up sharing his bamboo stick with, if you will, or wanting a piece of his bamboo stick. Wanting to share it and exchange it with him, if you get the idea. The ladies involved, in these stories are, Fiona Fox, which would be predictable. That's one. Sally Acorn, that's two. Amy Rose, that's three. But then we get really interesting here. Now, before we get there, there's also Cream. There's also Mina, if you will. Those are characters that you would probably expect. And maybe an OC here and there. So, again, Fiona, Sally, Cream, a teenage Cream, or young adult Cream, Mina, and an OC or so, and perhaps even Bunnie. So those are like 6 characters you would expect, right? And Amy. So Fiona, Amy, Sally, Mina, a young adult Cream, Bunnie, and an OC. So that's like 7 characters you would probably expect Tails to be with. And you could probably even add in Cosmo, which would make it 8. And maybe even Zoe as well from Sonic Boom, which would make it 9. So, and even Styx, if you wanted to go there. So there's like your top 10 characters that you would expect him to be with, right? You know, in these kind of stories that would want a piece of that bamboo stick that he likes to carry around. But there are other characters besides the 10 I just named off. Because, get this, along with those 10 that I just named off, you know, Sally, Fiona, Mina, Bunnie, young adult Cream, Amy Rose, OCs, you know, Zoe, Cosmo, Styx. Besides those characters that I just named off, that's basically like the top 10 you would expect. Get this. Get this. And again, this really blows my mind. Just getting some coffee there. But this, you know, really just blows my mind when I read some of these stories. When I read some of them at the suggestion of people, of other fans, it really blew my mind when I saw this. Besides, like I said, besides the 10 I just mentioned, he also shares his bamboo stick with these ladies. And these are ladies that want a piece of that bamboo stick. They want to exchange and share it with him because they haven't had the opportunity to, you know, share and exchange a bamboo stick in quite some time. And these characters are you ready for this? Vanilla, Cream's mom, and I know some of you are thinking, well, that's expected. She's put in any kind of scenario like this because of the way she's designed. That is true, but she was a big surprise, to me anyway. But we're not done. We're not done. Get this. Bernadette Hedgehog. Bernadette Hedgehog is Sonic's mom from the Archie Sonic run. The Archie Sonic run pre-reboot, pre-soft reboot, if you will. Yeah, she's Sonic's mom pre-soft reboot. And that's a surprise. And there is a story or so where she's involved in it. But she's not the only one. Get this. Are you ready? Alicia Acorn. Yeah, Sally's mom, pre-Sonic reboot. Pre-Sonic reboot, or pre-Sonic soft reboot in the Archie comics. Alicia Acorn is Sally's mom. Pre-soft reboot retcon of the Archie Sonic book, Alicia Acorn is Sally's mom. And in some of these stories, yeah, she gets a piece of Tails' bamboo stick. But she's not the only one. This one really surprised me. Because even the authors both said they weren't comfortable doing this, but they went and wrote it, and at the behest of the fans, you know, suggesting that they add it in with a disclaimer. Yes, they did put a disclaimer right before the story, right before this part of the story, where basically right before one of the stories, if not two of the stories, where Tails is treated like a ladies' man, and all the ladies want a piece of the action, you know, if you know what I mean, you know, takes place. One of the chapters in both these stories, both the authors have come out and have basically disclaimed they are not in favor. Excuse me, there. They are not in favor of this kind of intercourse, if you will, or intimacy. But with that said, the other lady besides Vanilla and Bernadette, if you will, and Alicia, the other lady, again, this is what a disclaimer comes in. The other lady is his own mom, Rosemary. That's right. Rosemary Prower is Tails' mom pre-soft reboot retcon in the Archie book. Pre-soft reboot retcon, if you know what I mean. Yeah, Rosemary. The one that was on the Royal Council. The one that Sonic met in space along with his, dad. Along with Tails' dad. Yeah. That Rosemary. And when I read that, I was like, whoa. That's really surprising. And get this. And get this. Like I said, you expect the 10 young ladies, that I mentioned before, these ladies, to, get into the action, get a share of the bamboo stick with Tails and all that. You would expect them to do whatever it took to, have those moments with with Tails and his bamboo stick, right? Well, I'll tell you this. The way they have Tails get approached to share his bamboo stick with these, I guess they're called MILFs, MILFs, if you will. I don't really know. I guess that's what they're called, MILFs, MILFs or something. The way some of them get Tails to share his bamboo stick with them is really crazy. It's really just like, yikes. I mean, it just blows my mind when I think about it. And one of the stories where Tails is treated like a freaking ladies' man. One of the stories, basically Tails can't control his instincts. It's like a side of him takes over and he can't control his instincts. It's like the animalistic side of him, to be dominant and all that, takes over. And when it's all said and done, all of a sudden he snapped back into reality and realizes what he's done. One of these stories has Tails, alternate universe and everything, alternate universe, where Tails lives on his own, he's grown up, and he has a girlfriend. And his girlfriend is Sally. But unbeknownst to Sally, Tails is sleeping around. Yeah, he's sleeping around. He's sleeping with Vanilla. He's sleeping with Fiona. He's sleeping with his own mom. He's sleeping with Alicia. All because they want a piece of that bamboo stick. They want a piece of that bamboo action. And it's unbeknownst to Sally that this is going on. Even to the point that unbeknownst to Sally, Tails, this is the other thing that really, and this kind of ties into the other story that treats him like a ladies' man, a true ladies' man, if you get my drift. One of the ladies that he cheats on Sally with, I should say, in this one story, is Vanilla. Like I mentioned, one of them is Vanilla, and she ends up pregnant, unbeknownst to Sally. And I'm like, I read this and I'm like, are you freaking serious? Are you out of your mind? and, I'm like, are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? It's like, what is it? I mean, what are these people thinking, huh? What are they thinking? I mean, I know, again, creative freedom, put the characters into any scenario that you feel fits them, and especially if it's a more adult scenario, because, comic-wise, all-age comic-wise and cartoon-wise, you can't do that. But if it's, your own imagination running wild, go ahead and do it. And I'm reading this, and I'm like, are you crazy? Are you nuts? Why would you have Tails impregnate Cream's mom? With your child while you're dating the royal princess. And she doesn't know any of this. It's like, it's just crazy to realize, It's just crazy to realize. But here's the thing. Speaking of impregnation, because of his bamboo stick, get this. So, one of the other stories is the story where I was kind of talking about, and it kind of gets, sampled in the story that I just talked about, or at least alluded to. Where, he's cheating on Sally with other women, and one of them is Vanilla, who he impregnates and stuff like that, right? Well, this story is very similar, but it kind of deals with a wives' club. That's right, a wives' club. Keep that in mind. Now, I'm not going to go any further than that, but let's just say this wives club, or this club, if you will, they want to have a piece of the bamboo action. And the characters that he gets really, close with in these stories that are like the main focus at first are Fiona, who is basically in this story looked at as being his primary love interest. Sally. And, of course, the one I just mentioned from the other one that he basically impregnated, Vanilla. Yeah, Vanilla. So they're like the primary founders of this club. And then, of course, they add in a member or so later on. But they're the primary members. All basically wanting to take their turns, getting a piece of that bamboo action with Tails. But they're not the only ones he, has intercourse. He has intercourse bamboo action with. No. He also has, like I mentioned before, one of the names I mentioned after the 10 I mentioned earlier, the 10 expected and all that. But the other one he has, a moment with is Bernadette. And then he has a moment, once again, and a second story in a row with his mom. He has a moment, believe it or not, and I forgot to add her, and this would have made it a top 11. He has a moment with Julie Sue, or it could have been a top 12, because it's not just Julie Sue, but it's Lala Sue, from Mobius years later. He has moments with them. Like I said, he has moments with Bernadette, moments with his mom. He has, of course, Sally, Fiona, Vanilla. And the common theme when he has moments with them, when it comes to the bamboo action shared between them, is he's always fearing that he's impregnated each and every one of them. I'm not lying. He's afraid that he's impregnated each and every one of them. And why? Because this is one of the examples, this story here, which again is an alternate reality story, if you will. Different author, I think, as well. Where basically these primal instincts for, for this bamboo action that he's taking part in takes control. It's like these primal, like I said, primal instincts, take over. And when it's all said and done, he even acknowledges that he doesn't know where it came from. And in the previous story, like I mentioned, some of that does show up, because he doesn't even know how it's happening. He doesn't even know why he's acting that way. But again, the theme with this story though, is his fear that he's impregnated each of the women he's come in contact with. I think he even has a moment with Nicole. Yeah, so you can make it a top 13, if you will. I don't know if he had one. I don't know if they were planning a moment with Bunnie yet. I think they were getting there, but then they stopped. I don't know if that was to continue the story. But yeah, so you're looking at 13 outside of like the older ladies, the MILFs, if you will, that he's had moments with. And a majority of them, the 12, besides Nicole, because Nicole's an AI, but maybe she's real in this alternate reality, we don't know, possibly is. So out of the 13 that you would expect him to be with, to share his bamboo stick with, along with the MILFs, in this story, where he has this fear that he's impregnated them, he has a fear that he may have done it to all of them. And basically, again, like I said, he's not sure how this happens. He's not sure why he suddenly gets this urge to get primal and dominant with them, if you will. He's not sure. But yet he does. But when he gets to a certain point, though, enough sense starts to, kick back in that he tries to get a lot of his lady friends, if you will, the ones that he's sharing his bamboo with, he tries to get them to get off, if you know what I mean, to remove themselves immediately when they get to a certain point. Because he knows that if they don't remove themselves, they don't get off, if you will, that impregnation is a strong possibility, if not a literal possibility. But every time he tries to get them off, or tries to ask them to remove themselves, none of them listens. And then that's when those primal instincts kind of kick back in again. And he just lets it go. He just lets it happen. and I read this story and I'm like, dude, it's one thing where you have in one story by somebody else, Tails cheating on his girlfriend, that girlfriend being Sally, and one of the women he cheats on with is the mother of one of his best friends who used to babysit him, and that woman is now possibly impregnated with their child because of it. It's one thing for that to happen, to go that direction, but now you're trying to top that by having Tails have this fear that that every woman he's been in contact with when sharing his bamboo stick with them has now basically ended up the same way, including his mother. Excuse me there. But including his mother. And it's like, you read that and you're like, whoa. Talk about being, written as a true ladies' man. Even to the point that he's basically on the verge of being the father of his mother's own child. And it's like, what? It's like, what? And it's like, I don't know what to say. And the way they, like I said earlier, the way they have some of the ladies approach him in this other story, not just the ones, like I said, you expected, but these MILFs as well, including his own mom, the way they have them approach him, it's like, you would think the red flag would go up in Tails' head to be like, okay, Tails, something's not right here. Your mom's acting strange, or your best friend's mom's acting strange. Get the heck out. But he can't, because that primal instinct is urging him to go for it. And I'll admit, that's the only real story developing that we get in these stories. The fact that he knows what's going to happen is not right. He knows there's a possibility that it could go in a direction that potentially can make him a young dad. And he's trying to fight his primal instincts and get them to realize, I can't go all the way. Even though his primal instincts are telling him, hey, you're looking at every lady here that you come in contact with, even your own mom, and you want a piece of the action. And again, that right there is the only story developing that they have. I mean, there is some other parts in there as well. Like I said, with this second one being about a club founded by Sally, Vanilla, and Fiona, about having their earns along with other members they bring in when it comes to Tails. As well as Fiona trying to get out of an abusive relationship with Scourge and, find happiness once again with Tails. Besides those being the only developments, along with Tails trying to find his primal instincts that are urging him just to go for it, I should say. These stories, this story along with the other one, are just like one of those WTF-like stories. And again, I understand that it's freedom. It's a freedom of creativity, and that you want to take these characters and put them into environments that you normally would not see them in because of, reasons. Whether it's an animated series, a comic book, or even a video game, that in those official tie-ins, you wouldn't see them in these kind of moments. But thanks to the creativity, the unlimited creativity of your mind, you can. You can. But what do you guys think? Now, I'm not going to provide a link in the description. Just go to, like I said, just go to fanfiction.net, go to the games category, scroll down to Sonic the Hedgehog, and look in that section. Now, if you have a fanfiction.net account and it's set to mature settings, then you'll have no problem finding these stories. But if you don't have an account, then get one, set it to mature settings, and you should be able to get these stories. However, if you do have an account but it's not set because of reasons, kids and all that, then when nobody's around, set it to mature settings, check out these stories real quickly, then set the settings back to parental guidance. But yeah, these stories are like prime examples of fans in a very creative, adult, mature, erotic manner, showcasing Tails, Miles Prower, as a true ladies' man. But what do you guys think? Let me know what your thoughts are in the live chat during the premiere, as well as in the comments below. And I will talk to you later. Peace out. God bless. Have a good day. So, several months ago, I did a video where I discussed the fact that one of the things people like about a fandom is the fact that you are able to ship whoever you want to ship together, basically. Whoever you feel has the best chemistry due to interactions or moments or whatever the case may be. Now, when it comes to Sonic, this is nothing new. I mean, going back to the Archie comic books, when Sonic was under their umbrella, even back to the Sonic SatAM cartoon, and even some of the games, there have been several indications of romantic ships teased, if not implemented or indicated, if you will, in the eyes of a lot of fans, and all due to certain, interactions with characters. Sonic being being the most among them, if you will. Either it's Sonic and Sally from SatAM and the Archie books, Sonic and Amy games and Sonic X, Sonic Boom, if you will, as well. Along with others, even Sonic and Elise, despite how people might feel about that. But there's one new one that kind of entered the equation, and by the title, you probably know exactly what that is. And that is Tails and Rouge. Now, what's interesting about this is it seemingly came out of nowhere. Now, I'm not saying it's nothing really new, but recently it's come out of nowhere. I mean, you go on a lot of these Sonic web group pages, either through Facebook, Discords, Twitter, whatever, and there's a lot of people that are, sharing artwork of these two being romantically together. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why is this happening? Why is this suddenly a thing? What caused it, basically? What caused the whole Rouge and Tails thing to become, a big deal recently? And one could probably point to the IDW book. From what I could tell and have read on my own, it seems that there have been moments in the book where Tails and Rouge team up together, and there seems to be some kind of respectable chemistry between the two. And there's probably a little bit of flirtation on Rouge's part to help to kind of encourage Tails or get him to do things that are needed and necessary to get, the job done, to get a mission, close to being completed or a goal close to being completed and achieved. So those might be the reasons right there as to why this is suddenly a thing. I mean, I do, recall, the moment in Sonic X when they did the Sonic Battle adaptation where Rouge kissed him on the cheek and thus, used that to eliminate Tails from the tournament. But still, besides that moment, there was no other indication. I mean, yeah, you might say, well, what about the Sonic Rivals games where they, raced against each other and they seem to be like rivals there? Okay, maybe that might be an indication, that might be something too. But even then, there was no artistic indication, publicly or, privately with, within the fan groups or anything that these two were together or there was some kind of romance between the two. I mean, people would rather ship Rouge with Knuckles or Shadow and Tails with, Amy, or even nowadays Whisper the Wolf or Tangle the Lemur, due to the fact that they're close in age on that perspective, and there might be better chemistry and uniqueness, and it might result in what's known as the opposites attract on that side of the equation, as well as with Rouge when it comes to Knuckles and Shadow. It could be the opposite attracts deal when it comes to those ships that people would rather see those characters in. But then again, you could also probably say the same goes for Tails and Rouge. But still, again, you have to ask why. Why the sudden interest in this ship? What has made this such a big deal, in the eyes of a lot of folks? What's so intriguing about it? What moments in the IDW book, if any, besides the team-ups and maybe a flirtatious moment here and there by Rouge to help encourage Tails to, do something that needs to be done, what other moments are there? What are the moments on Tails' behalf, towards Rouge has indicated that there might be some kind of romantic interest? None, as far as I know. I mean, look, Tails is no stranger to romance with female characters. You go back to the Archie books when Sonic was under that umbrella, and you had Fiona Fox, you had Barbry, that's B-A-R-B-Y, like bi and bar, so Barbry, the koala. You had Little Moon, the fox, and I think one or two more, but that's about it. And, and the fact is, and even Mina Mongoose, there we go, Mina Mongoose, but that was about it. So he's no stranger to this. He's no stranger when it comes to the romance, being in romantic situations with different female partners or characters. But never once, even in the Archie books, did they ever kind of teased something between him and Rouge. But now we get into the IDW books, and apparently, I guess, something's going on there. But again, we have to ask why. Why now? You know, I mean, I guess if given the opportunity, if given the opportunity, I guess Evan Stanley could say, hey, Ian may not want to test the romantic side of things, but I'm willing to chance it. And who's to say she probably won't come up with a story to where there might be some kind of romantic interest between the two? We don't know. But again, you have to wonder why. Why is this suddenly a big thing? You have to ask yourself, out of those moments in the book, that myself and everybody else has seen, what caused this? What's caused the sudden explosion, the sudden surge in popularity of the Rouge X Tails ship, if you will? What caused this? What suddenly caused this interest by a lot of people to display artwork and stories based around this romance? You have to ask yourself that question. Because, I understand, being a Friendship is Magic, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic fan, I understand how people feel about Rouge and Spike, but people still ship them. People still ship them because they come up with solutions of, hey, Spike's a dragon, but the reason he's not a big dragon or anything is because he's not greedy. He's not a greedy person, and it's a slow growth. And maybe he is the same age as, Rarity and all that. The same when, people decide, they're teasing with one of the upcoming issues with one of the variant covers. I think it's cover C or cover RI or cover R1. They're teasing something with Applejack and Spike along with a Pinkie Pie and Cheese Sandwich romance. It's like, okay, why? And again, I think it's kind of basically the uniqueness of it. I think it's the chemistry. It's basically the fact that there's something there that, obviously brings the two together, outside of just friendship or respect, for each other. And again, and I bring this up because, despite how people may question those romances being, not right or being unusual or being questionable, you have to ask the same thing of this, and being asked, why, Rarity and Spike, or why Applejack and Spike, what's the big deal? The same has to be asked for Rouge and Tails. What's the big deal? Why is this suddenly a big thing? But let me know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on the sudden surge of the Rouge Tails ship in popularity? Do you think it has to do with something that happened in IDW? Or do you think it's just something that people decided to just suddenly get behind just for the fun of it? Let me know down below. Comment if you like. Again, this is what we fans like about fandoms, being able to ship who we want to ship together. But let me know what your thoughts are, though, on how this suddenly happened. And I'll talk to y'all later, guys. So till then, take care, God bless, stay safe, and I am out. With everybody hoping that Sonic ends up with Amy, and that Sonic's the one that, in the fourth movie becomes smitten with Amy and such, and vice versa. It got me thinking about Sonic's friend, his little bro, if you will, in the comics, in the games, in the various animated adaptations, as well as now in the movies, and that being Tails. We know that Tails, and I talked about this before, we know Tails, in the eyes of a lot of fans, is pretty much a ladies' man. It's like, no matter what media he's been involved in, he always seems to win the hand of a girl. Whether it's in the Archie comics or in, animation. Sonic, like Sonic X, of course, with Cosmo, Sonic Boom with Zoe, and to an extent, maybe a hint at Stacy, of the Stacy and Percy twins, if you will. The twins there, if you will. I think that's what her name, Percy and Stacy, right? The twin bandicoots. A hint that maybe Stacy has a crush on him and such. Anyway, Tails always seems to be the one that, has the women become smitten with him, or basically is the one that always wins them over in some way.
and it's kind of a vice versa situation. And like I said, even the comics have it as well. You've had, an unknown background character, female possum girl kiss him and obviously have a crush on him. You've seen Barbary have a thing for him, even though she's supposedly older in age, but it could just be her statuesque nature. Like she could be around the same age, but she's just taller, stuff like that. And then, of course, you got the whole Fiona situation. And then, whether or not you looked at it as a potential canonization, you had him and Mina. You had him and Mina and such. And then, of course, the hints of him and Little Moon, and stuff like that. You even have fans looking at the fact that, they know that Sega is kind of hesitant with Sonic being with somebody. And again, this is where they hope that Paramount and Jeff Fowler and his team, having the leeway they do, will kind of course correct that and make both kind of smitten for each other. But, to the point that eventually you're hoping by the end of the film they end up together, or at least hint at the fact that that's going to occur before the series of films, either goes up to 5 films, or if not, potentially to 6 films, occurs, hopefully before all 6 come to be, that they hope in between that time frame they end up together. But, again, there are even fans that are hoping Tails, could end up with Amy, or want Tails to end up with Amy, because, again, as I was saying, basically they look at Sega being very hesitant to let Sonic have a love life, even in something that's adapted, from the game, or loosely adapted from the game. They're hesitant to let that happen, so the next best choice is, someone like Tails, maybe someone like Knuckles, but mostly Tails. And a lot of people also look at the fact that, well, if you think about it, depending on what media you watch, him and Amy are close in age, probably more so than, her and Sonic. And again, that's an opinion, people have, to no end. That's an opinion they have to no end. And there's a lot of comics, fan fiction stories, and such, and animations, if you will, that kind of lean in that direction of wanting to see Tails and Amy together. Just like they want to see Tails and Little Moon, Tails and Fiona, Tails and Zoe, Tails and a revived Cosmo, and so on. Tails and Barbary. Heck, I even did an audio video if on YouTube here, and basically I talked about the fact that fans want to see Tails and Rouge, or because of the fact that this is something that has been, I guess, sparked and everything throughout the recent years and such. I think because of the little fight in the Sonic X loose adaptation of Sonic Battle around season 2, I believe, of Sonic X, and then of course I think that got speared on by a couple of I guess you could say moments where they were working together in the games, and then of course you got Sonic Boom and such, and well, not Sonic Boom, well, Sonic Prime I should say, and such, and the various variants of them kind of being close together, or kind of like friendly and such. But yeah, fans even want that. And again, there's various comics, there's various video animations, SFM animations, NFSW animations, believe it or not, NFSW stories and such, where fans want to see tales of these different kind of women. In fact, some people even dedicate very adult NFSW stories as a two Tails basically having his own harem full of girls, or they do a chapter, they do a series of stories in chapters, where each chapter in this NFSW environment, Tails is of age, he's 18 if not older, and he ends up basically with all these different other girls that you could think of from the Sonic franchise, and they're always like one shots, or they'll always have a narrative, stuff like that, and again, it's mainly because a lot of fans always looked at him as being a ladies' man, because as I mentioned, you look at all these different interpretations of Sonic throughout the year, anime, animation, CGI animation, comics and such, and it always seems that once in a while if not more so, Tails would always seem to be put in that ballpark of being a ladies' man. I mean, there's even people that want him and Sticks together. Heck, there are those that, put him and Vanilla together. Yeah. And there are some that even age up Cream to about maybe a year or two younger than him that want them together. And it's just really one of those situations to where you're like, okay, we get it, but, why? There's nothing, officially out there, from Sega or through any of the loose adaptations that would hint at any of these ships beyond Zoe and Cosmo and Stacy and all that, where, where basically it's hinted at through, with Sega's approval, that there might be something there for Tails to look into. And that's true. But again, these are all fans' interpretations. These are all fans' point of view, their mindsets, if you will. And probably the biggest one, and you've been seeing the images go through the course of this video as I'm talking about this, is the one you're visually seeing here, if you're watching on YouTube, and that is of Tails and Nicole. That is a big one. And that probably has more support, more fanfare than I think anybody could really expect. And why? I think mainly it's because of the fact that just like Tails is looked at as a little bro in the BFF of Sonic in Sat-AM and in the Archie Sonic comics, Nicole, through Sat-AM and her evolution in the Archie Sonic comics pre and post reboot, is looked at as the little sister BFF of Sally, even though in the post reboot, it's indicated, it's kind of indicated and hinted at, and even by Ian Flynn's own admission, indicated that there might be something more between Nicole and Sally, if you catch my drift. But again, I think honestly that's why some fans look at Tails and Nicole as being a perfect item, because they both, honestly, as one person highlights it or subtitles it in a folder on a DeviantArt that they created, basically they're saying that both deserve love. And what better way to get that love than with each other? Being understanding of each other and everything. And also, again, like I said, I believe, because they're both looked at as like the young siblings, not in blood, but in theory, but in closeness, if you will, the little sibs of two of the main characters that are in love with each other themselves, and that being Sonic and Sally. And look, I have nothing against, fans wanting to come up with their own, interpretations of wanting, certain pairings together and all that. I really don't. When you look at, for example, Tangle and Whisper, in the IDW books, or the ID books as they call them, ID comics, IDW comics, when you look at Tangle and Whisper there, pretty much a lot of people know that all Sega has to do is give their approval, and we're going to get an issue eventually where basically these two are going to be an item. End of story. And there's a lot of stories out there, NFSW stories, comics, animation, stuff like that, to where it shows them ending up together. It does. And sometimes there's even, images and all that to where, because of the fact that they do end up together, that they end up developing the power to fuse with each other and become what's known as Wisp-Angle, which is basically a fusion of both of them, with Whisper's face and head and all that, and Tangle's tail and all that, blending of the color. And it's all because they see that all that has to be done is, Sega giving that approval, and boom, they're officially an item, and then, and then all their stories and everything can be justified. All their images can be justified and such like that. But there's nothing official yet, because again, Sega is very hesitant to let romance of any kind be in there, except for a few, instances here and there. And and speaking of Tangle and Whisper, there are stories that pair Tangle up with Tails as an item, and Tails with Whisper as an item, or even Tails with Lanolin, or Tails with Jewel. These females from IDW, they pair him up with them, because again, it's like, they look at how their personalities are, how they are represented, and represented and all that, and how Tails is, and it's like, hey, that's a perfect match. Let's see what happens. Let's explore the opportunities. And they go, and they end up going with that. They do. The point I'm getting at is, fans are going to have, their opinions on who they want with who. And when it comes to Tails, one of the more obvious popular ships they want to see, that, again, we've never gotten any real hint about it. When it was under the Archie comic banner, even in post-reboot, one of the pairings they want to see is him and Nicole. And it's the same reason why fans are hoping, that even though there have been little moments, sporadic moments, throughout the franchise, we've never had anything officially concrete and all that, I should say, in any other media. Outside of the games, outside of the games and all that, that would say, hey, Sonic and Amy are going to be an item now. I think the closest we've ever gotten was, during the final season of Sonic X, in the final episodes. But again, even that didn't concretely say, hey, these two are an item. It just hinted that, hey, maybe something more is going to happen later on, beyond season 3 and all that. Especially when Sonic was carrying Amy out of that bubble and everything that she dove into to save him. So, and then you had the reaction of all the characters from that, basically, being happy that not only were they alive, but kind of being happy, like, okay, finally, you two finally, became an item. But it wasn't indicated. It wasn't really officiatedly, easy for me to say, officiatedly consummated, if you know what I mean. So, even though it strongly hinted at them being an item afterwards, there was nothing really officially concrete, consummated, or anything like that after the anime was done by the creators, by the writers, the original Japanese writers, or the original dub writers, translated writers, and all that. There was no, indication officially that that's what happened. It just gave off that vibe. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's something that could happen, potentially with, Paramount. Paramount could be like, hey, Paramount, Jeff Fowler and his crew could be like, hey, we want this to happen, but Sega might be like, okay, that's not a problem, but here's the catch. You could do something that will hint at them being probably more than friends, but don't go any further than that. And if that's what happens, that's what happens. But again, fans will interpret that moment when it occurs, just like they did with that moment towards the end of Season 3 of Sonic X. Like, yes, finally, they're an item. Cool. Even though nothing was officially consummated, concreted, if you will, of that being the case. And, we'll have to see if that, we'll have to see if maybe Jeff Fowler and all of them can go beyond that and break that mold. But again, that's the fans' interpretation that what they saw in Sonic X in that moment. Boom, they're an item now. They're an item, even though nothing was officially made. And the same goes for here. Yeah, you had friendly banter and all that between them, but nothing more. Nothing more in the Archie comics pre and post reboot. You had friendly banter between them, but nothing more than that. But again, in the fans' eyes, it's like, why didn't Sega and Archie go in that direction? It's like, okay, if we can't have Sonic and Sally, and you're hinting at Sally and Nicole being an item, but you haven't really concretely, officially confirmed that, why not tease something with, between Tails and Nicole? Kind of work that out somehow, because, hey, both are looked at as little siblings to, Sonic and Sally and all that, as well as BFFs. Why not go that direction if you're not going to give us, the main course? And I think that's why fans have gone out of the way to make these stories between Nicole and Tails getting together, regular, clean sort of SFW stories, between them, as well as the beyond NSFW stories, as well as animations, little comics and pictures and all that. I think that's why, you see this, because it's like, well, to them, it's like, well, if you're not going to give us, if you didn't want to give us Sonic and Sally, even in post reboot, you could have at least maybe given us something, or at least hinted at something beyond, beyond maybe a friendship between the two little sibs, because again, that's how Nicole in pre-reboot and somewhat in post-reboot, in the eyes of some, was looked at, to Sally, like she was like a little sister, even though, as I mentioned, Ian Flynn had basically said that, yeah, there was something more between them, and they kind of threw little moments and hints here and there during the Spark of Life miniseries in Sonic Universe. But whatever the case is, long story short, this is a pairing, this is a ship that fans, I think, obviously wanted to see, probably more so than people want to admit. And I think it's mainly because of the fact that both have kind of, not, been very, well, one has not been very lucky when it comes to love and everything, even though he's pretty much written, even though Sega and all that, and even though people that loosely adapt him into these other medias, have written him in such a way. Tails is written somewhat as like a ladies' man, even if unintentionally. And Nicole, but he's a ladies' man that, in some cases, finds love, but then that love, becomes broken. It's like it doesn't last. The Zoe one obviously lasted in Sonic Boom, but again, that was just one time. That was just one thing. And, we didn't really see Zoe that much in the show, except for when they became an item, and then a few times afterwards. But we didn't see her that much. But again, when it comes to like characters like Fiona and Cosmo, it's like the love that was there just goes up in smoke. You know what I'm saying? And for the latter, for a good reason, for a good cause. The other because basically, she just didn't truly accept or understand that, look, here's a character that likes you despite your past, and he's willing to accept you despite your past, But, what are you going to do? And then you got the whole Bobbery kind of thing, and it's like that got questionable. But again, I think it's more along the lines that, I think it's been cleared up somewhat that she is around the same age, but, she's just more statutorily taller than him. Who knows? But the point I'm getting at is Tails is kind of in that category where the love has not, finding love has not really been easy for him. And Nicole wanting to find love and acceptance as being beyond just an AI and a portable computer and such, becoming more Mobian human, if you will. I think fans look at that, they look at Tails and like, perfect match. It's like, this is a perfect match. This is a perfect scenario. Why didn't they go in this direction and make it happen? And again, I think it's mainly because of the fact that, Ian Flynn, I'm sure Ian Flynn has heard about this a lot. Ian didn't want to, risk the chance of romance anymore, except for certain characters. The only romance he kept in the comic after the in the post reboot was Antoine and Bunnie. Because that was pretty much established in pre-reboot that they were married, so you can't just basically destroy that. You can't destroy that and just start from scratch with them, because fans became so used to that, became accustomed to that, you have to keep it in there. And that's what he did. Everything else is more like, yeah, we can hint at something, but we're not going to fully come out and say it because we don't want to risk, the shippers, getting mad and saying, oh, well, Sally should be with Sonic, Nicole should be with Tails, or, Sally should be, or Sonic should be with Amy, Sally should be with Tails, and, they don't want to risk that. He didn't want to risk that, so he's like, screw it, I'm just going to do one, and I'm just going to hint, and that's all he did. It's all he did, as much as we may not like to hear that. So, in the end, ladies and gentlemen, I have no issue whatsoever with fans wanting to see wanting to go, even, after, the comic has been long gone. It's going to be like 10 years in 2 years, I think, 10 years in 2027, since the comic officially came to an end, with Archie. I don't blame fans for wanting to, beyond it, wanted to keep, the spirit of that comic alive and do things, romantically with characters that they felt maybe should have been at least tested in some capacity. And I won't be surprised if maybe Archie Sonic Online and Archie Sonic Restored, under the Archie Sonic Online banner, ASO and ASR, I'm not going to be surprised if either one of them, if not both, do a one-shot, pre-reboot and post-reboot story, maybe where it hints at Tails and Nicole kind of liking each other beyond friends. But we'll have to see if they do that. But again, this is the reason I bring this up. It's because of the fact that this is something that fans like seeing. They're very intrigued in. And potentially it's their way of saying it's something that they will, that they feel and believe should have been at least teased in the post reboot, if not the pre reboot between the two. Mostly post reboot, because of that, because of the understanding of each other. Like one understands love but never really succeeded, and the other wants love because they want to be accepted. And that's pretty much, I guess, how they view it. And again, I think they also view it because both are looked at as the BFFs and the little sibs of both Sonic and Sally individually. But let me know what your thoughts are. I know this may have not made sense to a lot of people, but let me know what your thoughts are. What your thoughts are. Sorry, I woke up from a nap just a little bit ago. But let me know what your thoughts are and everything in the comments below. Like the video, ring the bell for notification. Also, comment in the live chat where super chats will be open if you want to do that. Also, guys, you can check me out at my Teespring store. Merchandise there get merchandise there where you can't get anywhere else. Link will be in the description. Also, check out the links in the description as well to find my content elsewhere. Find my podcast at all your favorite podcast outlets for video and audio podcasts like Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Overcast, you name it. If it has a podcast, you're probably more than likely to find mine there as well. Also, check me out at rumble.com at BW Roses. Sorry about that, but like I said, wherever there's a podcast, you can find me at on those. You can find me there along with other podcasters. Also, check me out at rumble.com at BW Roses, odyssey.com at BW Roses, VENMO.com at BW Roses, inkbunny.net at BW Roses, deviantart.com at BVW1979. As well as check me out at twitter.com at BW Roses and Blue Sky at BW Roses as well. And I will try to get something like a True Social up down the line, but we'll see. But guys, that's basically where you can find me across the internet. You'll also probably get a podcast version of this at the podcast, on my podcast, if you will. Like I said, where you can find podcasts anywhere. You'll get an audio podcast of this to listen wherever you go without having to watch the video and all that as well. But again, guys, give me your thoughts. Ring the bell for notifications. Like the video. But give me your thoughts. And until then, I will talk to you all later. I'm out, and I do apologize if it was a little ramblish. I did wake up from a nap.
So, I don't know if it really surprises anybody, but it seems lately, I don't know if it's because of the games or IDW or whatever the cause is, but it seems that, well, there's a lot more, I guess you could say, focus on an Amy and Tails ship. Now, what I mean by that, and I know I've talked about Tails having a lot of ships, already, but the reason this one is more interesting to talk about is because of the fact that this is one fans have been actually wanting to see for quite some time. Because, well, frankly, if you look at the overall Sonic landscape, everyone has always kind of agreed that if you're going to give Amy a love interest, that Amy should be with Tails and not Sonic. That logically, from an age perspective, it makes more sense. And I kind of do agree with that. It does kind of make more sense. But we've never gotten to that point since Amy's debut. Because most of the time, Amy would always be pursuing Sonic, or lately come to an understanding that, well, if her and Sonic are going to have any kind of relationship, she's got to let Sonic be himself, even if he becomes a bit of an annoyance. However, like I said, outside of that, it seems that there is more love heading Tails and Amy's way. Not just because of the fans, but somewhat because of the official, I guess, like I said, the official releases and advertisements and things by Sega and the Sonic team themselves in the likes of the games, in the likes of the IDW comics, and so on. But is there a reason for it? Is there a reason why, not just from a fan perspective, but somewhat of an official perspective, we're getting more Tails and Amy shipping teas? Is there more to it? Because we know that they have rumored and talked about the fact that, they might allow a little bit of romance into the Sonic franchise down the line. So could this be part of it? Could these teases be part of it? Or are they just doing this to see how fans would react? Like, would fans accept this over a Sonic and Amy ship? Because we know that there have been teases in the game of Sonic being with Blaze. I know that doesn't seem like, a logical choice because it seems more Blaze Silver, but it does tend to be, in that field that, hey, if you're going to pair Sonic up with somebody outside of Amy, game-wise, it's going to be Blaze. So the question is, could that be the reason why we're getting, some Tails and Amy teases? Not just from, like I say, a fan perspective, but an official capacity. Is that the reason that, hey, if they do this, they're going to basically ship maybe Sonic with Blaze, or just let Sonic be that free spirit he's always meant to be? We don't know. But it's interesting to think about. It's really interesting to think about and really, wrap your head around when you get down to it. Because, again, this is something that fans have been kind of thinking about would be more sensible from a shipping romance perspective. But will it now happen? Or are these just teases to see how fans will react? And fans are reacting in ways by kind of creating their own artwork and writings, if you will, mature and not mature when it comes to them. Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment below, live chat during the premiere, like the video, super chats are open during the live chat. Love to hear from each and every one of you on it. And until next time, guys, I am out. So, yesterday, I did a response video to Groovy K's 2000s videos he did on Sonic and Tails family trees. Basically, he did these videos about 2 years ago. And I made a suggestion at the end, and I figured, well, if I'm going to make that suggestion for him to try, I might as well kind of kick it off myself. And that is to answer the one major question. Now, I don't know if I've done a video on this already. If I did, I do apologize, and consider this a bit of an update maybe if you want. But one has to really ask themselves, this question when it comes to Mobius years later. You see, one of the pairings, shipping pairings in Mobius years later, surprisingly was Tails and Mina. Mina Mongoose, that is, or Mina Mongoose, depending on how you pronounce her name. Now, originally, Ken Pender said that was put in there as, just a joke. Someone drew it in there as a joke to pair Tails off with someone that no one would expect. Because, let's be honest, at this time, Mina Mongoose had just gotten over her crush with Sonic and was now in a relationship with her stage manager, Ash Mongoose. So you have to wonder, how did she go from Ash to Tails? That's the question. But, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to do. We're here to answer that question of how did that come to be? And I look at it this way. To answer that question, how did she end up with Tails? I think we have to look back at the present timeline at the time that the original Mobius Years Later stories were being published. You see, we have to go back and look at that. And at that time, like I said, she was with Ash, of all people, and Tails had a crush, or had basically reignited
his crush and feelings for Fiona Fox. Because Fiona Fox was with the Freedom Fighters at that time, because obviously she felt, before Ian Flynn kind of changed all that she needed a change of pace. She wanted to see how things were a little bit more different on the side of good and such. Anyway, that's where we are in the present timeline at the time that these stories are published. So we got to look and dissect between there and then, or there, I should say, basically the present time of when the story is published, to then, which is the future, Mobius years later, to see, to see exactly how this all came about. How did Tails end up with Mina Mongoose? Well, we can assume that a lot of things had to happen, right? A lot of things had to happen. First of all, we have to look at the fact that we have to basically point out certain events. One of the first events is Ash actually nearly sacrificing himself to save Mina, which kind of makes Mina realize that despite the fact that she still technically had some crush and feelings for Sonic, that her heart now belonged to Ash, because he was willing to pretty much put his life on the line to save her, to prove his love for her. So, we know that moment has to stay. That moment has to occur. But where does Tails come in? Well, with Tails, we have to look at 172, unfortunately, and Fiona's betrayal. Because this is where basically Tails has to essentially start to get over his feelings for Fiona, even though Fiona points out in a Sonic Universe Journey to the East part, which I think was part 2, Fiona herself basically brings up the fact that, as much as he wants to hide it, Tails still is hung up over her. In other words, he still has feelings for her, no matter, what he'll say, or no matter how much he'll try to deny it. So we got to bring that into the picture as well. And we got to let these two events happen, along with the fact that we got to let the quarrel, the fight between Sonic and Tails and Heart of the Cards, 178 and 179, to occur as well. Why are these events important? Well, it's real simple. It helps all the characters, have significant moments in their lives, to help them move on to get to the point of, them being together. So now that we're looking at all that, so now that we've kind of looked at all those events step by step, Ash putting his life on the line to save Mina, to prove his love for her, Tails having to start, getting over Fiona after her betrayal, the fight he has with Sonic in Heart of the Cards, 179 and 178, where basically he admits that the reason he's been so angry with Sonic isn't just because of his situation with his parents, but mainly because Sonic was dating and went out with Fiona when he should have known better. Like, he should have known that would break Tails' heart, because that's the woman Tails loved. We have to let all these events happen to start kind of trying to figure out and piece together the pieces of the puzzle to figure out how these two got together. Now, after these events have occurred, we move on. We move on to issue 200, the event where Eggman loses and basically loses his mind. Okay, we get to that event. That's good. Now, after that, we have the Iron Dominion arc. What happened during the Iron Dominion arc? Well, we know, like I said earlier, Tails went with Sally, Sonic, and Monkey Kong, Ken Kong, to Eastern Mobius to dismantle the House of the Iron Queen, the houses of the bride, if you will, of the Iron, which are basically servants of the Iron Queen, which they succeeded in doing. And basically, they caused them to break away. Now, we also have to look at what happens afterwards, because there are several issues after the Iron Dominion arc where Tails is not involved in the main plot with the characters, as far as I know. He's not totally involved, as far as I know. There are some stories. Now, I don't know if he's not involved with the story with Big, Sally, and Sonic, and the Wolf Pack and the Cat Pack, or whatever they're called, who are feuding with each other over this one emerald. We don't know if he's involved in that. If he is, I have to go back and look, but I didn't really see that. Again, just my opinion. So we know, like I said, there are some issues that he's not involved in. Mainly because of the fact that at the time he's also escorting. Yeah, he isn't really involved in this, as a matter of fact, because in the other issues he's escorting. He's escorting Bunnie and Antoine on the honeymoon, which takes place in Sonic Universe. So after that, he comes back, right? So after he comes back, and Bunnie goes with Sonic to another part of Mobius to see what's up there. What's going on with Tails? Well, we don't know, as far as I know. We don't really know what's going on with Tails, but we can assume that he keeps himself busy with his inventions, learning more on how to be a freedom fighter, stuff like that, right? Spending time with his friends, you name it. So we pretty much know that Tails, he's off doing his own thing after he comes back from, trying to give Bunnie and Antoine the honeymoon, if you will, escort them to his private island. But what about Mina? What is she doing at this time? Well, apparently, from what we could probably tell, she is, I think, on tour. Yeah, she is on tour, as a matter of fact, because I think they do allude to that. She is on tour, and she's being escorted on tour by the Chaotix. This way they can keep an eye on her, keep her safe, but also look for any suspicious activity by Eggman or whatever. So she's being escorted by, the Chaotix, if you will, as far as I know. But now that we know all that's happening, all that's occurring, how do we get to Mina and Tails? How does this all happen? Well, unfortunately, we may never really get an answer, or at least a tease of a potential thing happening between the two, because, of course, as we know, the book got retconned. We know the book got rebooted, softly, hard, however you want to look at it. And we do know that Mina Mongoose, despite the fact that she wasn't a Ken Pender's creation, was wiped from existence. She's gone. So is Ash. Gone. But still, it makes fans speculate on how this could have happened, or at least allude to a tease in the Mobius years, timeline of something potentially going on between the two, or leading to the two getting together. So, how do we look at that? How do we get there? Well, if we take out the behind the scenes crapola, if you will, if we take that out of the equation, we could probably look at the fact that after Mina gets back from her world tour, and obviously, she's had to hear what happened to Sally and everything, because, we got to go through the Mecha Sally arc. Yes, we do. We got to add that to the list, to the timeline of how we get here. But obviously, after she gets back from her world tour, and obviously, after seeing Sally get rescued and restored and everything, the question is, where does the journey begin? Where does the journey, the first steps to her and Tails being together begin? Well, obviously, there is something that occurs. I don't know, how they make it happen. I don't know how they get to this point. But I think what happens is that Ash, I don't know how this would be written, But something tells me that Ash would be killed off. That's right. Like, he survived one time, right? Saving her. So, you can't have him essentially survive twice. So I think what would have happened is, this is where they would go. I think this is where Ian Flynn, I'm trying to put myself in his mindset. This is where I think Ian probably would have gone if he wanted to give a little bit of an idea of Tails and Mina getting together, or even Penders. I'm trying to put my mindset. I know that sounds crazy. That sounds crazy to do, but I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of Penders and Flynn on how they would probably do this. And I think they both do a similar situation. They would, well, okay, maybe not similar situation. Let me correct myself. Okay? What I think would happen is with Flynn, he likes to basically tease near character deaths. He likes to tease their deaths and all that, or tease the fact they're going to die, or pretty much kill them off. So with Ash, I think what he would have done is he would have had him be killed off. Like, okay, I let him survive once, I'm not going to let him survive twice. And I think they would have encountered Eggman's army or Eggman's bots. And to protect Mina, Ash probably would have sacrificed himself and been killed. And in the process, maybe have Mina promise him that she will find somebody that will protect him just as much as he will. Well, basically, I think what would have happened, like I said, is I think Ian would have had him killed off trying to protect Mina again. Instead, and while he's dying, I think Ian Flynn would have had him have Mina promise to find somebody that's going to love her and protect her just as much as he does before passing away. I think that's what would have happened. Knowing how Ian writes the books sometimes, especially pre-soft reboot, retcon, if you will, I think that's something he would have gone. I think that's an area he would have gone to where he would have had basically Ash sacrifice himself once again to save Mina, but this time die in the process of doing so, but have her promise to find someone that's going to love and protect her like he did. Now, if Penders was writing it, it might be something similar, but knowing how Penders is, we might have got something different too. Now, here's the thing. Would we have gotten, Ash sacrificing himself, getting nearly blown up to save Mina, like Ian had originally? Probably not. Knowing how Ken Penders writes, he probably would have had Ash be more of a jerk. Like to save Mina, he basically would cause, a building to nearly fall on maybe some kids. And it takes Sonic almost to the last second to save those kids. And Mina would want to question, why didn't you save those kids? Why were you going to let them die? And Ash could use in his mind, justifiable excuse that, she is more important to him. Her protection is more important to him than just those kids. So in Ken's way, he could start forming cracks between the relationship where Mina would start realizing maybe Ash isn't everything he's cracked up to be, but, she's still willing to give him a chance. She's still willing to give him a chance and everything because he is her stage manager, her road manager, her stage manager, and he's done a lot for her, so she's willing to give him a chance. But over time, I think what we do is we start planting the seeds of knowing how Ken Penders is, based on his writing. Ken would start planting the seeds of doubt. And this is where you would have Tails come in. This is where I think he would have Tails enter the frame. Okay? First of all, knowing Ken Penders, and I think he's even admitted this, he would have not gone the betrayal route with Fiona. He would have kept Fiona on the team. Maybe he had done similar stories to where they would question her loyalty, and to prove her loyalty, she would actually reveals certain things of her past and those that she's worked with to help the freedom fighters get an advantage or be a step ahead or something. I think that's what Ken Penders would have done with Fiona. He wouldn't have gone the betrayal route, but he would have had them question her loyalty and have her prove her loyalty by telling them about certain people she's encountered so they can be a step ahead of them and ready in the near future. As far as Ash though, I think Ash would have been the one he would have gone the traitor route with. That's right. I think he would have gone the traitor route with Ash. And again, the reason I say this is because of what I think he would have done, in Ash saving Mina and, basically almost costing the lives of civilians, kids, if you will, where Sonic would have to save them at the last minute and she'd question why, and he would tell her, you're more important than them, which again would start bringing in the cracks, but she would still be with him and everything because, he is her road manager. He's taking care of a lot of things. And, for the moment, he's proven to be, loyal to her and true to her no matter what, or so it seems. And so it seems, but over time, knowing how Ken is, he would build upon that. He would build upon that by forming the cracks, forming more suspicion, on Ash because, he would start acting a little bit more, not just aggressive towards Mina, but more, like, hey, I don't care what happens to anybody else. I'm protecting you because you're more important. And to me, this is where I think, like I was saying, he would bring Tails into the equation. Tails would notice what's going on, try to wonder Ash, why are you acting like this? Why are you acting like a jerk towards the girl you love? Why are you, putting people in danger? And Mina could be the peacekeeper saying, hey, it's okay, Tails, it's fine, don't worry. I know, Mina could basically try to come up with reasonings, unexcusable reasonings that she knows, are not right to excuse him for why he does certain things, so he's doing certain things. Anyway, to get to the point, I think Ken would basically start forming the cracks to the point Tails would start noticing, because you bring Tails into the equation. He's still questioning what's going on. Mina would try to be a peacekeeper till eventually something happens. And what that eventual something is all of a sudden the freedom fighters, they go on these missions to stop Eggman or try to, shut down some of his bases and all that. And all of a sudden they start noticing a lot of the plans backfiring, or they start noticing Eggman's, ready for them, and all the bases that they were going to, get at are now nothing but traps because there's nothing there, because everything's been moved out, and essentially now it's just one trap to try to take them out. And they would try to wonder, okay, not wonder, but they would start kind of, putting things together that Eggman knows of the plans, but how? And they'd start realizing, hey, someone must be letting him in on things, but who? And for a while, knowing how Ken is, he would build again the tension as to who is leaking the information, who's betrayed the team. And again, this is where Tails would come into play. And he would ironically, unbeknownst to Ash, find out that it's him, Ash, that is betraying the team. Well, not betraying the team, but betraying the freedom fighters, because he's finding out information, he's sneaking around, finding out information about upcoming plans and relaying them to Eggman to be ready for. Now, I know you might say that's a little too convoluted, but again, remember, this is Ken Penders we're talking about. And this is how I think he would interpret Ash if he was still writing the book. And, how he would involve Tails and how basically that would start the progress of him and Mina being an item. But again, like I said, I could see, a scenario where Ash is revealed to be the traitor. How? Because again, Tails eavesdrops, ironically and unbeknownst to Ash, of him communicating with Eggman. And then basically setting up maybe one of the biggest, I guess you could say, messages sent by Eggman that he can know of, within the city without even being there, by trying to sabotage and, hurt, if not kill, Mina. But again, you would wonder why Ash would do this and everything if he's so protective of her. But then we would also find out that he's not really been in love with her, that he's actually just been using her for to gain all this fame and fortune for himself. And now that he's accumulated enough financial backing to last him for who knows how long, especially also thanks to Eggman helping him out, supplying him with stuff, now he can just be rid of what, both agree to be dead weight in Mina and her band. And I think what would happen here is Tails once again would try to tell Mina, and Mina would be like, try to brush it off, saying that can't be true, there's no way he would do that. Only for Tails to basically reveal right before, not right before, but during the concert, like when they take a break from a song and they want to show something and everything on the screen, and everything, or Ash, okay, this is what, all right, let me rewind here. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is I think what would happen is, they're going to go on with the concert, and during a break, Ash comes on board, says he has a nice little surprise for Mina and everybody around for the great job she's done and the support they've given her. And Mina and the audience not knowing that it's basically a trap to blow them all up or hurt all of them. They're unaware of it. Just when Ash thinks, okay, he's about to, show his true colors by, like I say, sabotaging the whole event in front of everybody, while he's on stage with Mina, that's, like I say, hurting them, hurting her, whatever. That's when Tails, interrupts him and says, you know what? He basically, this is where I think Tails would show up, interrupt them, and reveal to the world Ash's true intentions. And again, in front of the world, in front of an audience, like Sonic and Sally could be there and all that. You can have Mina being like, Tails, what are you talking about? Why are you doing this now? And then you could have Tails point out a little something, and all of a sudden he could maybe turn on some kind of recording he had or whatever, because because ever since he's found out about Ash's betrayal, he's been following him secretly, unbeknownst to him, and recording any conversation or hacking into any conversation he's had with Eggman. So, to get to the point, because I know it sounds like I'm rambling, I think what would happen is Tails would interrupt this special moment that Ash has planned for Mina and everybody, and basically put the recording on, or turn the recording on, so that everybody hears it through, let's say, the loudspeakers of Ash's betrayal to Eggman. And this, of course, would sadden Mina, because she would look at him, be like, why? Why would you do this? This, of course, would get everybody upset with him, Sonic, Sally included. And then you could have maybe Ash try to justify something along the lines of, well, you think we're going to win this war? This war is endless. So why try to beat somebody like Eggman when you can join him? And then maybe you can have him reveal how he truly feels about Mina. Like, and besides, as far as you go, you might be a talented singer and everything, but in reality, you're nothing more than a washed up Sonic fan, and who I took advantage of to gain money. Or something like that. And yeah, it would be heartbreaking for her. And then for Ash, he could think, well, he can even conclude by saying, well, I guess now the cat's out of the bag, or the Mongoose is out of the bag. I guess I can bid adieu. I guess I can bid adieu. And just when it looks like he's about to set off, let's say, an explosive or whatever, nothing happens. And Tails then reveals that, oh yeah, by the way, those little bombs and stuff you were, about to set off, yeah, I disabled them. And then it's there after that where basically Ash realizes, oh shit, he's screwed, tries to get away, but he's stopped by everybody. And mostly, he's not just stopped by everybody like Sonic, Sally, Bunnie, Jeffrey, because we know Ken would probably keep Jeffrey good. But not only is he stopped by Sonic, Sally, Bunnie, and Antoine on and everything, and Jeffrey and all them, but then we see Tails basically delivering, boom, the last punch right to Ash, knocking him out. And that's not all. I could also see Mina being like, as he's about to deliver said punch and knock him out, I should say, Mina stops him. Ash thinking, okay, she still cares about me. Instead, she nuts him and then punches him. Basically, she knees him right in the you-know-whats and then punches him, knocks him out. And to me, as convoluted as I made it sound there, that to me is when you start hinting, if you're Ken Penders, you start hinting at Ash and Mina, not Ash, but Tails and Mina probably having something, because you could have a moment afterwards, after Ash is arrested, put away for a bit, you could have them have a little bit of a moment together, and you could have, Mina thank him and then, apologize for not believing him, and, Tails being Tails, you could have him be like, it's okay, it's fine, I mean, I know you were hoping this would be the one and everything, And, just before, they kind of like, go the separate ways or something like that, or maybe just go out to have like a drink or something like that at Uncle Chuck's. You could have her give him like a little bit of a kiss on the cheek, or maybe even a kiss on the lips, which kind of surprises him. And he'll be asking like, whoa, and he'll be like, of course you'll have Tails a little shocked, going like a little blushing or shocked, like, what was that for? And she could say, well, it's just another way of me saying thank you for being a good friend. And you just leave it at that. And then that's how you kind of hint at the idea, if you're Ken Penders, that, yeah, these two are going to be together in the future. That's how you hint at it. Now, I know that sounded more convoluted than what Ian Flynn would do, because Ian Flynn, like I said, he would make sure Ash would die honorably trying to save Mina and have her promise something along the way of, find somebody to love and protect you like I did, which would lead to her being with Tails, at least hint at it. And, you go from there with them. But overall, those are basically, I think, the steps that would need to be taken from an Ian Flynn perspective, and probably much more explicitated and overlapping, if you will, on a Ken Penders perspective of how I think, the steps would be taken, to lead to a Mina and Tails relationship in the Mobius years later timeline, depending on, whose writing you believe is more accurate or more believable. Like, again, Ian Flynn's simple, have Ash sacrifice himself again to protect Mina, have him die in the process this time, but have him promise her to find someone that's going to love and protect her like he did, that you're hinting at her and Tails, and then, or at least alluding to that potential ability. And then with Ken, like I said, I made it sound more convoluted because knowing Ken, it would be more convoluted. You have Ash be a trader, basically be outed as a trader who's more interested in his own investments, basically in Mina, his own investment, which is his own financial investment, which is Mina, not truly loving her or caring about her or anything, only caring about the money she brings in. But at the same time, hawkering a deal with Eggman to basically betray the team for not just more money, but for maybe a higher position of power and everything somewhere on the planet, maybe like in a Casinopolis or whatever, only to be ousted by Tails, who basically tells Mina about it, who tries to blow it off for a while until finally the truth is revealed, as I mentioned, in what would have been a plan, a big old scheme by Ash to try to basically hurt everybody attending the concert, and even Mina, who's performing the concert. So that to me would have been a more convoluted way for Ken to do it. But again, either way you get to your point, you get to your destination, or at least you allude to the fact that that's the destination, easy for me to say, destination you want to head towards as you get more more closer to that timeline in continuity, whether it's an alternate timeline, alternate dimension, a what if scenario, whatever. You're hinting more at that possibility, happening in the future. So anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and talk about that, give you my thoughts overall on how I believe, either writer would get to that scenario, from point A to point B, whether it's Ian Flynn or Ken Penders. Let me know what your thoughts are down below, guys. Comment if you like. I got to get in the shower and get myself ready for work. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you on this. Live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super chat, super stickers are open during the live chat, as well as super thanks afterwards. Check me out at Venmo at Brian-Romer-2 and at Cash App at BWRoses98. We could really use your help in those areas right now. Also check me out at Venmo at Vimo, I should say, at BW Roses for content you can't get anywhere else. As well as check me out at patreon.com. So that's BW Roses, $1 Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. And on my BW Roses Discussions podcast for audio, in all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora for audio versions of what you hear on YouTube. Until next time, guys, again, let me know what your thoughts are. And Groovy K, hopefully you're listening to this, and hopefully you'll take your time and maybe a little bit more unscripted, a little bit more scripted, than I was, and give your thoughts on where you think, where you think it could have, where you basically think it all began that would lead us to a Tales of Mina thing in years later. Until next time, guys, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Again, I got to get myself ready. And until then, I will talk to y'all later.